So, anyone else see this coming? 'Cause I sure didn't. A Mary Poppins sequel. Wow. Well, let's get to it. Mary Poppins Returns. Basically, the Banks children are grown up. One of them has kids of his own. Spoiler, his. And Mary helps him and his kids deal with their problems, which are numerous. Again. Man, this family has some bad luck. Anywho, let's start with Mary herself. I think Emily Blunt did a pretty decent job bringing Julie Andrews' character back to life. I think she had a bit of her own Emily Bluntness, but for the most part, it was spot on to the original performance of Julie Andrews. Her co-star, the substitute for Dick Van Dyke, who, by the way, has an amazing singing voice. Everyone had an amazing singing voice in this film, but I'm getting off topic. The new Dick Van Dyke character, who, in the continuity, was an apprentice to the original guy, was all grown up and made a pretty good replacement for Mr. Van Dyke. The Banks children, all grown up, were very adult. I felt like they were sort of mirroring the original adult characters for the most part, but they put a little more emotion into it, I think. The kids, this time there are 3, were... well, they were kids, basically, but they did a pretty good job. I mean, they weren't the worst child actors I've ever seen. And now we get to the meat of the cast. We had a couple cameos. I'm not going to spoil it, but they were decent if you know what to look for. Excuse me. Don't you hate it when your computer gets interrupted? Anywho, like I said, there were a few cameos, and one surprise actor who I did not see coming at all. And by cameos, by the way, I mean from the original movie, if you know who to look for. And then we get to the dancers. I can't believe how amazing the, in this case, lamplighters were in this one sequence of the movie. It felt like they had somehow time jumped the chimney sweeps from the first film into this film, because the choreography in the dance numbers in this film were amazing. But let's get to that later. The film takes place in like 1930s-ish Britain, and I honestly felt like we were there. It looked real, it felt real, and honestly, props to Disney for once again bringing us into a time period. 1930s-ish London never looked better. Probably because of all the soot. The original Banks house and street block were faithfully replicated, I think. And honestly, it felt like everything from the original movie had just aged a little, and was not recreated, but rather set aside, aged, and brought back. It all looked great. The music was classic Mary Poppins. I felt like I was watching a true continuation of the original story. Old characters were brought back, new characters were introduced, and it just felt like I was watching a Disney movie. Like really watching a Disney movie. Not polished and modern, but something that had been done with classic effects, you know? Like from the original movie. With the exception of a couple of scenes with CG, which had to be done for obvious reasons, everything else was perfect. Honestly, I think Mary Poppins Returns respected the past and kept the spirit of the story. And instead of keeping it real, which everyone does, they kept it supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And yes, I learned that word a long time ago. This is Mr. J signing out and reminding you, the best fictional characters can never die. They might change, especially since I think Mary Poppins might be a Time Lord, because let's face it, she's managed to change her face now, and she fits the profile. But, like I said, true fictional characters are immortal, and so is she.